Welcome to Real Estate with Corinne. I'm Corinne Kern, broker with Bighorn Real Estate in Billings, Montana. And today I have a special guest with me, Brian Hafner with Universal Lending. Brian is a mortgage loan originator and also a certified military home specialist. And I'm really excited to have him talk to us today. We're going to be talking about down payment assistance programs. But before we get into that, I want to give Brian an opportunity to introduce himself. So welcome, Brian.
Awesome. Well, Corinne, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk a little bit about the different programs that are out there for first-time home buyers, or any buyers, honestly. So I'm Brian Hafner with Universal Lending Home Loans. We are an independent mortgage bank on 26 and Grand here in Billings. The nice thing about being an independent mortgage bank is we do offer quite a few different loan programs. So we've got quite a few things to choose from, able to get a little creative when it comes to some borrowers. Also, though, we do underwrite and fund, have our own appraisal department. So we kind of keep everything in-house during the process, which means we have control over it from start to finish, which in my opinion is very important with this. So yeah, I look forward to answering any questions, going over the different programs with you.
Awesome. Thanks. And I will say, I didn't just pick Brian's name out of a hat. Brian has helped a few of my clients in 2020. And I can just speak as a full-time professional that the service that Brian and his team provides is a step above any other. Not only is he incredibly knowledgeable, but is fantastic with communication and really will help walk you through the process. So I definitely highly recommend him if you are looking to buy and don't have a lender yet. But let's get into, yeah, absolutely. So let's get into some down payment assistance programs. So Brian, I think the best way to start this out is to ask, how does a buyer go about finding out if they qualify for down payment assistance?
And it probably is one of the most important questions because down payment programs, while they are great, they do have more stipulations and rules than just a standard loan program. So truly, what we probably want to do right away is meet up with the lender and do an application. Just go over your financial situation. As a lender, I'm looking at income, credit, your debts, your assets that you have for like a down payment or closing costs. A lot of these programs have maybe a little bit higher of a credit score requirement. Some of these programs, the debt to income is a little bit stricter than the other programs out there. And then I will say almost all of the down payment programs do require the borrower to have some skin in the game. So even if you've got the down payment assistance and the sellers may help out with some closing costs, you still have to bring some money to the table, usually. So I'm going to go over the complete picture with the borrower, find out what program works best for them. So really it's sitting down with the lender and going over the big picture and kind of finding out what's going to work best for the borrower and what programs the borrower does qualify for.
Perfect. And I think, you already kind of touched on this when we first got started, but maybe expand a little bit more. I think most people have the idea that down payment assistance is only for first-time home buyers, but that's not true. Is that correct?
Correct. So I will say most of the programs do require you to be a first-time home buyer, but there are some programs out there. One of them is called Home Now. And they do have a program where you actually don't have to be a first-time home buyer. So I would say 95% of the down payment programs I do are for first-time home buyers, but you don't necessarily have to be one.
Perfect. Fantastic. And then maybe share a little bit more for someone that's never gone through the application process. Is that an appointment to come and sit down with you? Can they do it online and send you documentation? Or what is that upfront investment in time? And does it cost anything?
Perfect. So yeah, there's actually quite a few different ways to do an application. We've got all the technology. So I'm still a fan of face-to-face. I love setting up meetings, coming into my office, going over everything, bringing in the documentation. But especially with COVID, not everything is like that right now. So we can do an application over the phone. I actually have a phone app where I can send it directly to the borrower. They download the app and then they can do an application The app's pretty cool because it's got a calculator on it. It's got the different programs, different like home searches. It's got a lot of different tools that the borrower can use besides just doing the application. And then honestly, the number one route I would say right now is just through my website. People can go in, you'll fill out the application on the website, and then you're also able to upload documentation directly through the website. The nice thing about that is the website's 100% secure. So if borrowers, like we require tax returns, we require W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements. We don't necessarily want the borrower just emailing those over because unfortunately email is not 100% secure, where our website is. So you can really just drop and drag into that website. The application, if we do it in person or over the phone, usually takes 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the questions. But it's a quick process. I'm just asking a lot of basic information. I pull credit, and that's truly, we can have a great conversation without pulling credit, but for me to truly approve a borrower, I have to pull credit because unfortunately, Credit Karma and some of the other like credit cards or programs that borrowers have that tell their credit scores, those are completely different scoring models than a mortgage credit score. And they're weighted differently. So me pulling credit and seeing what debts are on your credit report is very important to the approval process.
Makes sense. And does it cost, for someone that wants to put an application in, does it cost them anything to do that?
It doesn't. So I would say probably 50% of the people I meet with aren't approved right away, or they're approved, but we're going to come up with a game plan to make them a better, more qualified borrower. So there's no cost whatsoever to meet with me. And we can pull credit, go over everything. Like that's truly what I do. And that's what I love doing. It's working with buyers that maybe come into my office and aren't sure if they're qualified. And either they leave the office realizing they are qualified, or they leave the office knowing exactly what they need to do in the next few months to get qualified is such an amazing part of this job.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I would speak true to that too. There's a lot of buyers that I speak to who, you know, they feel a little discouraged when they go in and they don't necessarily qualify. And I have one right now, for instance, we worked on getting her qualified back in October. She needed to do a few things to her credit, and come February, she's going to be ready to purchase. And it's amazing how quick that time goes by, and she put in the little bit of work it takes, and it's going to be worth it. So I think for anyone, probably both of us would speak to this, that if you feel a little discouraged, and the fact that Brian's willing to work with you and help you through getting to that point where you are qualified, that's also just, you know, a huge kudos to Brian for willing to do that, being willing to do that. So so maybe I know that we don't necessarily have time to go into all the depths and details of the different down payment assistance programs, but maybe if you can just give us the names of them and if there's any specifics that you think would be important to share at this time.
Awesome. So there's really 4 main down payment assistance programs that we use, universal lending. So there's Montana Board of Housing, there is Home Now, there is NeighborWorks, and then there's the City of Billings. So they usually all right now are requiring a minimum of at least 620 for a credit score. Home Now is a little bit higher for the credit scores, depending on what program you use. They all have debt to income restrictions, and they do have income restrictions. And so when it comes to the income, it's based off of anybody living in the home above the age of 18 for like Montana Board of Housing, NeighborWorks, City of Billings. And so like real quick, like Montana Board of Housing, and I will say these numbers are based off of 2020. They haven't announced the new numbers for 2021 yet. Usually those come out in March or May, which it's kind of funny that it's a quarter of the way through before they actually announce them. But like in Yellowstone County for Montana Board of Housing, for a family of 1 or 2, the max income that you can make is about $78,000. And then it's about $90,000 for a family of 3 or more. Home Now, their FHA program is about $88,000 for the max. And then their conventional is about $61,000 for the max. Conventional is a lower number, but if you qualify, let's just say with one borrower and the husband or wife, we're not using them for income, then they don't count against that number, which kind of gives you a little bit more flexibility. And then like City of Billings, their income is actually quite a bit less than the other programs. So City of Billings is a wonderful program. We just don't see it as much just because of the income limits. So all of these programs will give you money to help out with your down payment, maybe your closing costs. I will say no money is free money. So usually when the program gives you money, either your interest rate's going to be a little bit higher than if you were just doing a standard like FHA loan, or you have to pay it back when like over a 15-year term. So like I just did one where they got $10,000 towards their down payment and closing costs, and they were paying, it was like $68 a month for the next 15 years towards that second. If they wanted to pay it off quicker, they definitely could. Or there's an option if you qualify for it where you pay it back when you either refinance or sell. So if you sold the house in 5 years, you think you're making this much profit on the house sale, but actually you got to take some of that and pay it back to the down payment program. I will say Home Now actually has some grants out there. So they'll give you money that you never have to pay back, but the interest rate is a decent amount higher. So that's where I really talk to my buyers and like, what are their goals? What are their plans? What's more important to them? Like maybe they can afford an extra $100 a month, but they just don't have that $10,000 up front for the down payment. So every program has different rules and stipulations. Really what my goal is to sit down with the buyers, talk to them about what their goals are, talk to them about their situation, their financials, and then the different programs that they'll qualify and what program will work best for them right now and what program will work best for them in the future. So all these down payment programs, they're amazing programs. They truly are. I feel like we've got some awesome programs here in the state of Montana. But I will say, yeah, no money is free money.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to make. And I think that definitely helps kind of curb some of the misconceptions of down payment assistance. So now what happens, let's say someone comes in, they think that they're going to qualify for down payment assistance and they're looking to utilize that because they don't have the cash in the bank account. Maybe they don't qualify because they make too much. Are there other loan programs that might be able to get them close to no down, or what are their alternatives once you've vetted out those down payment assistance programs?
So there are quite a few programs. I will say a lot of people that come in kind of think you have to have 10, 20% down, and you don't. FHA requires 3.5% down. So like a $200,000 home, that's $7,000. Conventional, depending on a few things, they actually have a program that can be as low as 3% down. Standard conventional is 5% down. So it's not 20%. But then there are programs out there that can be 0%. So if you're a veteran or a surviving spouse of a veteran, there's the VA loan. It's such a great loan, and people using it have earned it. So it's a 0% down loan if you want it to be. So again, yeah, buying a $200,000 home, your down payment is truly zero if that's what you want. It's a little bit more flexible on some of the other numbers. So it's a great loan. Also, and it doesn't have like income limits or anything like that. You can use it more than once if you have your entitlement. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's a great loan. The other loan out there that is 0% down is it's the Rural Development Loan through the USDA. So if you're buying a house that's just outside of city limits, even if it's like Laurel, Warden, Shepherd, anything like that, those home or that area usually qualifies. If it's Heart of Billings, it's not going to qualify. But even right now, like some parts of Lockwood and West Billings do qualify. It's a little bit tougher program to get qualified for, a little bit more restrictions when it comes to the debt to income, to the credit. But again, 0% down. It is truly a great program for the ones that qualify for it. In the grants, there's no like hidden fees or anything like that for those programs. There is one thing that I'll talk about is mortgage insurance. And it's a lot of people think like, oh, okay, I'll have my principal and interest. And if you go to Zillow.com, a lot of times they're going to say like, here's your principal and interest payment. Well, people think that's their full payment. When you buy a house though, you've got your principal and interest, which is the money that the lender is giving you for your home. You've got property taxes, you've got homeowners insurance, and then anytime you put less than 20% down, unless you're doing a VA loan, you're going to have mortgage insurance as well. Conventional allows that mortgage insurance to fall off. Usually FHA, rural development, that mortgage insurance stays for the life of the loan. But it's not too expensive. And it's just a great way, again, to get into a home and not have to have 20% down.
Yeah, fantastic. No, that's perfect. That gives us such a great idea of kind of the scope of what programs are out there. Let's see here. And if you kind of touched on this a little bit, but if a buyer qualifies for an assistance program, do they still have closing costs? So I know you mentioned some of these programs will have, they'll still require a borrower contribution. They may have their own closing costs to pay. Can you kind of give us an idea of what that amount usually looks like? Is that a percentage of their loan, or what can they expect for that?
Yeah, so closing costs I've never quite figured out exactly how to estimate it without truly getting into the numbers. Mm-hmm. I will say it's usually on a standard loan, it's usually in Billings or the surrounding area, about 2%, maybe a little bit more than that, of what the loan amount is, 2 to 3%. I will say the down payment programs, because they're their own special program. Well, they also have their own fees. So like Montana Board of Housing, Home Now usually charges a 1% origination fee, plus maybe a few other small fees. So the closing costs when it comes to a down payment program usually are actually a little bit higher than just a standard program. The one thing I like about Montana Board of Housing is they actually give you more money than what the down payment is. So they're actually, even though they have more fees that are going to raise the closing costs, part of what they give you actually helps out with closing costs. So on a $200,000 home, if you're using down payment assistance, I would say your total estimated closing costs are probably going to be about $6,500, where they would probably be closer to $5,000 if you weren't doing down payment assistance. I will say there's ways to get creative with that, working with the realtor, seeing if maybe the sellers can help out. You would know better than anybody. It's a tough market right now, maybe to get seller paid, especially in that kind of price range for the down payment programs. But there are options out there. And usually any program requires the buyer to bring at least $1,000 to the table. And I always preface that with, but then they also have to have the inspection and a rainy day fund. So if somebody's got $1,000 to their name, we've got options. But I also try to talk to them and like maybe, hey, let's plan to maybe have $2,000 to your name, just so you have a little bit of cushion as well.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that. And that's true too. I mean, our market right now in the greater Billings area is the inventory is low. It's more competitive for buyers. So getting sellers to contribute towards your closing costs and be competitive if there's another offer that you're up against is a little bit difficult. And so I think for anyone that's thinking about buying, getting qualified and really understanding what you qualify for, what you're going to have to contribute, and then also taking into consideration the fact that a seller might not be able to contribute or might not be willing to contribute towards your closing costs. And if you don't have that money saved up yet, working on that. So, well, that's incredibly helpful, Brian. I thank you so much for joining me today. I think that gives everyone who's watching just a really good kind of overview of the process, the programs that are available here in Montana, and definitely encourage, if anyone is watching and they haven't started the process yet, contact Brian. I'm going to include all of his contact information in the description box below. I will also include all my information there, and we'd love to be the team that you choose to work with if you're going to buy. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I have new videos every Tuesday. And thanks again, Brian. I appreciate you hopping on with me today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful to talk about these programs.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
Take care.